Hello, my computer says it is 12 o'clock. I can officially say good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I am Stephanie Nichols. I am a regional parent mentor with Michigan Alliance for Families. I'm excited you took a couple minutes out of your day, maybe an hour, to learn more information with us. We are glad you are here. Before we get started, I do want to go ahead and share some information in the chat. You should see a link to the handouts there. And here is a link to the entire webinar series and a link to the handouts within that as well. Let's take a look real quick at our Michigan Alliance for Families website. I hope you've been here before. It is full of great information. To start with, we are totally free information and referral all throughout the state. If you are anywhere in Michigan and think, oh, how do I reach my regional parent mentor? Who is it? Or who is my cousin's, uncle's, dentist's, drama teacher's regional parent mentor? This is a great place to start, where you can click on your region. I don't remember if I just said or not, I am Oakland and Livingston County, and Oakland County actually has three parent mentors, so you can see where your school district is and who your parent mentor is if you click on our interactive map, no matter what your region is. So that is a fantastic way to get started with us. We have tons of information, disability-specific information, IEP topic information, eligibility information. You could spend days on the website. I hope you do, but spread out. Don't do it too much at once. That's too much information. Your brain will get full. We've been trying to keep this COVID section up to date as things are changing. Lots of virtual information, how to enhance learning at home, what things look like. This is hopefully going to be a section that sometime comes and goes, but we will keep adding to it as things continue to change. We do have recorded webinars of previous presentations. Most of them are under an hour long at 2 in the morning when you are trying to figure out the behavior plan or what the behavior is trying to tell you. You can pop over here and look at our behavior topics and take a look at behaviors communication or think about some strategies to integrate at home. These are all on our YouTube channel, so if at 2:30 you finally get tired and you pause it, when you come back to it later, it's going to pick up right where you left off. So those are there for you as well, as in addition to our upcoming learning opportunities. The future year should be here soon. There's just a couple of things for the remainder of this month right now. You are at week 2 of our Return to School webinar series, and here is the details, which you can also find on that link in the chat for week 2. And right here is where you would click for our resources today to find all of the information. Ooh, is it gonna load? My computer's feeling a lot of demand at the moment. Well, hopefully it works when you click it and you're not streaming your video. There we go, that's progress. So there's all the resources for today. All right. I am so happy that we have Angela Martin and Renee Hall with us from the Michigan Developmental Disabilities Council. Ladies, if you'd like to unmute and turn on your cameras, I will go ahead and hand it over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. And thanks, Stephanie, for getting us such a warm welcome and showing such great resources. So my name is Angela Martin, and I work at the Michigan Developmental Disabilities Institute. And we partner with the Michigan Developmental Disabilities Council. And my colleague, Renee, here is from the council. And we're going to share with you some information collectively to talk a little bit about self-advocacy. So we're great to have the opportunity to speak with you today.
I apologize. Thank you for that introduction. I also do want to mention real quick, if you do lose your GoToWebinar control panel, you're going to want to look for the little orange or blue flower in your control bar. That's going to bring you back to all your videos and all your controls, and the little orange arrow will expand your panel. so that you can see more information. That's where you're going to find the chat, which is where I'm posting the links. And also, as you have questions throughout the presentation, go ahead and type those in the chat. We'll be taking questions periodically. So I apologize, I did not cover that, and I'll hand it back over.
So what Renee and I will share with you is really an opportunity for you to think about how you can assist students and youth in your lives that are trying to grow their advocacy, and that starts with wherever the student is at. I know the age range of who might be on here, their student, their youth might be very young, and it might be somebody towards the adult age. And what we hope to share with you today is to find an opportunity for you to assist your student, youth, in developing advocacy. And it's a lifelong development. So what is self-advocate? At its core, it's about teaching you how to make decisions and choices about life, things that impact your life. It's also about, more philosophically, is about you being more of who you are. When you are advocating for yourself, you are tapping into that piece of what is important to you and what makes you what makes you a unique person. So it is really an opportunity to help somebody develop their full sense of self as well. It's about also increasing independence. Nobody in any sphere that I've ever been a part of has been able to do everything on their own, by themselves, all the time. I rely on family members, friends, people that care about me, that I care about all the time. And to the degree that I'm making the decisions about how I have them help me is really about self-advocacy. And that's the same for young people, helping them to figure out how they can, make sure that they're able to ask for what they need in the way that is addressing their need, but also being a good, respectful person, and making sure that they're also doing something that is respectful of the other person. So it's a two-way street, and it's about intercommunication. So self-advocacy is about using your voice, but it's also about how your voice is used to help others also have that same experience. Next slide. We're going to start with a quick video, and Renee and I are here. We have different experiences with disability, but we don't identify as a person with a disability. So what we thought we would do is we would start by sharing some voices from people that do identify as self-advocates or individuals with disabilities. They're going to tell you what are some of the roles, the responsibilities, and some of the opportunities for self-advocacy that they've individually experienced. And it will also help you think about some opportunities for where you could help your family member, your son or daughter, or our youth demonstrate self-advocacy in everyday life. And they also, I think, give some really helpful tips in thinking about where people got in the way. I think sometimes it's also important for us to know, as supporters to the self-advocacy movement, how we can get out of the way and be, sideliners, cheerleaders, but not interfering with people's self-advocacy. So Stephanie, I'll hand it over to you, and Stephanie's going to play our video for us. Thanks.
If I speak to others, sharing
Thanks, Emily, or Stephanie, for forwarding that video with us. And I hope you got to see a bunch of different examples of what people, some really wise self-advocates are sharing as opportunities for you to be supportive of self-advocacy. So to touch on some of the things that some of the self-advocates highlighted, what does it mean to be a self-advocate? So as we are talking about opportunities that you could assist youth and students in your lives, is helping them to get really to know themselves, who they are. There also needs to be some pride in their disability. I think you saw in the video and some of the self-advocates shared is that they know what they know, and that is a value to people at a decision-making table, about people making systems change, about people in their community. So there's also a little bit of pride in that disability lived experience that we need to also help people. So it increases their ability to feel strong and healthy about who they are, and then helps them to be a really strong advocate, a self-advocate. There is some idea that we want to make sure that we're helping self-advocates organize and develop and build a network of advocacy movement on, of just self-advocates, people with direct lived experience. But there also is the importance of making sure that they are equal partners in advocacy and movements with others of shared interest, but maybe are family members or people that work in the field. So they are equal partners in advocacy and systems change. So you do that by helping them to get to know the people around them so they can build relationships and develop connections. And that starts from a young age. The people that you know in your neighborhood when you're young might be your future partners in some, community endeavor, or maybe in employment. They might be a fellow neighbor in your neighborhood. Those are why we want to get people to know who they are so they can build relationships, to know who they can connect with and build relationships with. And when you do that, that helps people to feel confidence and insight to then make some decisions. So we also want to bolster people up so that they feel comfortable in making decisions about their lives. Next slide. So when we talk about advocacy from the next level is to think about what people, what are their rights? You have to know what you're fighting for and where you can start to have some advocacy. So it's helping people from a very young age. And if it's school, they start to learn the rights when they're at school. If it's in the community, what are their rights within the community? If it's with their own, doctor, their primary care or pediatrician, that they, what kind of information are they supposed to know when they go to the doctor? It's giving people knowledge and information to know what their rights, and with those rights do come responsibilities. When you know something and you have a right and you want to make sure it's preserved, you also have the responsibility to make sure that you're doing something about it. So it's giving some expectation to that person to say that we're going to give you the knowledge, and you're going to have this right as a member of our community, but you're also going to have some responsibility to give back to the community and make sure you're part of it. It's also connecting people so that it can feel a little isolating if you're the only voice in the room. So it's helping youth with disabilities who become adults with disabilities and advocates, is that they're not alone. They can be part of the community. They can be part of connected to other people with also shared interest. It's also about listening. So when you're young, you sometimes don't listen as well as when you get better at listening. I think sometimes every day I grow a little bit older and I get a little bit wiser about what I'm going to listen to. So you need to listen to people and you need to respect opinions. With that comes practice. Sometimes when you're young and energetic, sometimes you don't know how to do that. So you need to have the practice of listening to other people's ideas and respecting their opinions, and how you can still work with them. And as parents and people that support individuals with disabilities, we can, give opportunities, but also, be good examples when we're doing that too, is that we're equally listening to one another in a respectful way so that people's ideas are equally considered. Next slide. Another part of advocacy and developing as a self-advocate is acceptance. To know that who you are is wonderful. That's what we also need to do for other people. We need to accept people for exactly how they present themselves, how they identify themselves. I can tell you, working with self-advocates, this is something that not every person that comes to advocacy is maybe been given some insight into. Knowing that differences are equally valued and equally important, and we need to find that those differences are what make us diverse and make us a unique group of people that bring lots of various ideas to the table. It's not about questioning if whether that person should be there or how they identify themselves is something that you agree or disagree with. We accept people where they're at and we work with them with where they're at. And in doing so, that is really empowering to the whole movement, that everyone has an equal place at the table. Another part of self-advocacy, and this is really over time, and this can start at a very young age when you're in school and telling your story about what you need to be successful in school. And that story develops and grows, and people get better at telling their story, their personal experience, and then sharing it with public policymakers and community leaders. We want people to grow, and so knowing and having a story to tell and then sharing it with people that can make change is part of a really key part of advocacy. But we do need to support youth to try to do that from a very young age. If they're joining a sports team or a local club, also when they're joining that club and maybe talking to folks about how they can be successfully supported, that's about telling your story, and that helps them develop their skills going forward when they're going to be meeting with policymakers or systems change individuals. Another way to make sure we're helping self-advocacy is spread the word. Sometimes people think self-advocacy starts when you're an adult. Well, it doesn't. It starts when you're a youth. We got to make sure that young people are engaged with telling who they are and what they need, and then involving other people to do the same. That includes people with and without disabilities. I mean, a young person in school who might have a disability experience might be the first person that is encouraging somebody else who's maybe struggling at school or maybe having a bad day to be that person of fellow advocacy to say, hey, we can talk to the teacher, or we can talk to, the school staff, and we can make sure that we're all doing well today. Like that kind of shared advocacy in a school building, in a neighborhood, is all part of that youth development. And we want to help youth to become leaders. We should encourage all people. And as a young person, people need to, when you're young, you don't sometimes recognize which attributes or qualities that you have that are leadership qualities, and sometimes as leaders or family members or adults in people's youth life, we need to be able to say, hey, you know what, that was a really good skill that shows that you're a leader. And that, I grew up playing sports as a young person, and that gave me a lot of leadership qualities, how to, work within a team, how to make sure a team is successful. Those are all things that can help people develop leadership, and in helping youth figure out that those are leadership development opportunities. The same is true in the classroom when you're working on a school project and somebody shows some qualities of leadership and working together with classmates, even in the really young ages of working in a pod, when they're working together on a class activity. Those are all opportunities where we can help highlight for young people where leadership is shown. Next slide. So how can you as parents and family members be helpful to advocacy? The first thing is to help them think about issues. As families, I'm a family member as well as I work in the field. Helping my family member to understand an issue is about having a conversation, giving information, making sure that she has as much information as I do about a particular issue. One thing that I have learned from working with fellow self-advocates, there are self-advocates and even in Michigan that I turn to that are smarter than me about a particular public policy issue that I will pick up the phone and call them. They've got it down pat. So we need to tap those resources. So that comes with increased understanding, helping people to learn about something they feel very passionate about. And it could be something that's not a passion of yours if you're a parent or family member, things that youth care about, helping them to increase that interest and understanding so that they're prepared advocates. The other thing we need to do is we need to help advocates prepare by being good citizens. And citizenship is how you are a neighbor, what you do to contribute to your community, how if you're able to vote, that you can vote and you're prepared to vote, and volunteerism, giving back. I do want to touch real slightly on voting, just because as you heard from the self-advocates, that this is a incredibly important piece of their identity as a self-advocate, is voting. I often have some people have said to me, well, so-and-so doesn't know, they don't know much about this, particular topic. We shouldn't have them vote. They're not an informed voter. Well, I can tell you, I've been voting all my life. As long as I've been eligible, I've been voting. There's probably things on the ballot that I didn't vote, that I voted for, and maybe I didn't vote for, that I wasn't completely, but I have every right to exercise that responsibility to learn more about the issue, to decide. When you vote, you don't have to vote the entire ballot. Some people skip sections. It's the parts of the citizenship of showing up. The other thing that's really important is when people with disabilities vote, and people that care about people with disabilities vote, as the self-advocate shared, those issues are more important to people and policymakers. So it's really important part of advocacy and self-advocacy is voting. We also, I mentioned this earlier, we need to help educate youth about their rights and their responsibilities. You don't get to just, pound the table and say, this is my right and I want it this way, darn it. No, you have some responsibilities to also make sure that you're shoring up your end, that you're contributing in a way that is taking care of whatever that issue is, giving back, contributing. And involve the youth in their decision making. From a very young age, it's important to help them participate in decisions. From a young age, that starts with some advocacy skills that you develop about, and I know for parents, this is a really getting back to school and that first day of struggling about, the morning routine and, I'm not wearing that and those kind of things. But sometimes that's part of advocacy, that you're kind of asserting yourself and saying, this is what I really want to do, or, I know there's struggles there, but those are also windows into opportunity. Because with that, there's bigger decisions. I don't want to partake in this activity. I want to spend my energy on that. That's advocacy. That's also about decision making, and that grows and helps a person develop those skills and attributes for bigger decisions later on in life. The other thing, and we're going to share with you a little bit later, some places where is in the video. All of us that care about self-advocacy and supporting it can be contributors and supporters. But there is something fundamentally different when another person with the same lived experience, a fellow advocate, is mentoring you into that role. So we're going to share with you some places where that youth can be engaged in, and also finding opportunities within Michigan. And Renee's going to talk about that, how they can practice that. So they can practice it on a local level within their own personal life or in the local community, but then also in a broader scale with other advocates across Michigan and across the nation. So the next slide shares a little bit about Self-Advocates of Michigan. And to share with you, this is a statewide organization, and the mission of this organization is to empower people with developmental disabilities to advocate and take ownership of their lives. The purpose is to, focus on independence. I think the group often has these values of inclusion and freedom, opportunity, respect, dignity. Interdependence is often where they end up landing when they're talking about what that means in connecting self-advocates. But this group was started several years ago with support from a couple, our organization, Renee's organization, and Disability Rights Michigan, because we felt like it needed, self-advocates needed to organize, and they needed needed to have a statewide network of fellow advocates. So really it's about empowering people with disabilities to make decisions about their life, and also develop a movement that is organized with others. So how can you help Self-Advocates of Michigan? Next slide. We'd like to offer you some opportunities to think about how you can be a partner. So certainly if your organization, Michigan Alliance for Families, can be a partner, we have what is called an affiliate membership, where organizations, membership in the organization itself, and SAM, is restricted to people with disabilities. So we often get the question, well, why can't family members join? Well, family members can join as supporters, but they're not members. They don't have direct lived experience. So an organization such as Michigan Alliance for Families, or if you individually wanted to join, you can join as a supporter, and really it's really to encourage and support the movement of self-advocates. We have a membership application that we can share with you, and we want leaders to be involved. We have a board membership. It's a 12-member board, and so we're also thinking about helping people to participate, and then in the future, as they feel more comfortable in their leadership role, join and be a leader of the organization and serve on the membership. So we'll share information about SAM at the end, and it's also included in your in the handout. But at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Renee, and she's going to share with you some specifics about what's happening upcoming for SAM, and so you can have more details. Renee?
Thanks, Angela. So I am absolutely ecstatic that Angela and Stephanie asked me to come and present today. I am the new advisor to the Self-Advocates of Michigan, and it is my sole responsibility to support the board that Angela just mentioned and their activities. And it's a board of 12 advocates from all across the state of Michigan. They're diverse in geographic region and disability, but more importantly, they're diverse in their abilities and their advocacy skill sets. And these amazing advocates go out and fight for things. Right now they're fighting about the end of 14C, which is a big thing in the state, right? That's the sub-minimum wage law. And they're talking about voter rights and electronic visit verification. They're just an amazing group of people. I was tasked with shaking it up a little bit and kind of changing things around, which is kind of the thing that I do best. So I'm kind of excited about all of the opportunities that are coming. On the slide, it talks about what's happening with the Self-Advocates of Michigan. The first bullet point talks about local groups. And so, like I said, SAM is this board of 12 amazing advocates from all across the state who have tasked each other and myself and everyone that helps SAM to try and get involved on a more local grassroots level, because it's really easy for a board like this, a statewide board, to sit and talk about decisions and do things. The video talked about you don't want others to make decisions for you, right? If you're not at that table, decisions will be made without you. And so SAM doesn't want to do that. The advocates on SAM have these amazing lived experiences, but they don't have everyone's lived experience, right? So it's really important to SAM that they get out into the communities and kind of get engagement, see what's happening, see what issues are important. Transportation, always a huge issue for persons with disabilities, but it may not be such a big issue in, say, Grand Rapids as it is in Detroit proper. It may be a completely different transportation issue in a rural community. So having more engagement and more involvement on the local level is going to make a big difference in the kind of things that SAM does and what they're looking at. We are increasing and expanding advocacy and engagement. One of our board members last week won a national award for her advocacy efforts and her ability to connect not only herself, but other advocates with her legislature, with people, stakeholders and decision makers. We're really trying to work to have that increase throughout the state. Pardon me. An increased online presence. Right now, our website it's lacking. I'm just gonna be honest, it's not the best website you've ever seen. It's a WordPress blog site. We are gonna up our game there to give families and advocates more accessibility, to give the next bullet point is about a networking space, a place where advocates can come and talk about the issues that are impacting them. It's great to have an email. It's great to every once in a while bop into another organization and see what they're doing. But if we can convene some kind of a conversation space or community of practice where advocates can talk with one another and, oh, well, how'd you handle this? How'd you do that? What did you do in this regard? It will be a big deal. And the advocates are all really excited about that. we'd really like to get some more engagement going back to the local groups and the local level. Again, SAM board members are 18 and older. But we'd really like to get some more participation from everybody around the state. SAM has 3 committees that do a big chunk of the work and the activity that SAM does. And those committees are public policy. And in the policy committee, they're all over the place, writing letters, looking at bills, talking to legislators. It's a really cool thing that they do. Our membership committee works on things like engaging people in the community. They work on bringing people into the board. They work on what are bylaws and what the rules are, any fiscal things that come along, stuff like that. And then there's also a public relations committee that is tasked with getting the word out about Self-Advocates of Michigan with creating community conversations. We had an amazing talk with Dr. Renee Caldoon and someone from Brightleaf Consulting. Aaron was great talking about kind of how to cope during COVID and what that looks like. And Dr. Caldoon gave us an update on what was happening with COVID in regard to persons with disabilities. So those kind of conversations where statewide people can come together and ask questions and get information, and advocates can talk about things that are important to them in spaces where people and stakeholders are, so they get their voices heard. We historically have had closed board meetings for SAM. It's just how it was. They were not subject to the Open Meetings Act, so the meetings were closed. I'm going to change that. And in January, we are going to open our board meetings. So the public will be invited. There'll be a training opportunity, a presenter, something, you know, along the lines of what Angela and I are doing now, different topics, some leadership development to help the state's self-advocates as they increase their skill set and their abilities. So we'll be blasting that information all over the place soon, because we really would love to have everybody come and sit in on the meetings. You know, like I said, 12 people is an amazing thing, right? It's an amazing group, but everybody should have a voice. And so we're really excited to kind of shake things up a little bit in the new year. Thanks, Angela.
Thanks, Renee. So I think before we go on to the next part, I think I want to just give some space for questions and why those are coming in. And I know Stephanie invited questions through the chat. So as those are coming in, we'd be happy to pause and take questions before you talk about some national resources. But I think I just want to really emphasize a point that Renee just made, is that while you can be a board member, you need to be over 18. Any of the membership activities, any of the activities that are, we have a, I should say, there's a legislative advocacy day in March. Those are open to anybody, and we would encourage you to, you know, encourage youth to be part of those. I mean, and I think getting to see another person with a disability, really advocating is helpful to you, to help you see your voice be more amplified. So Stephanie, I'll pause there and see if there's any questions that you've received that we need to address.
I appreciate you asking. We do not have any questions at this time.
Okay, great. All right, we'll save space at the end as well. And with that, we'll move on to some national resources and share with you a couple things. And as we mentioned, these are some things that are also included in the handout. So the first thing we want to highlight for you is Self-Advocates of Becoming Empowered. SABE, which is a national self-advocacy group. It's led by people with disabilities. It's organized by people with disabilities. It is a national presence. How it exists is that several states either send members to serve on the national group. They have regions. In Michigan, we're part of the Midwest region, no surprise. It used to be called the Great Lakes region, but now it's the Midwest region, and it's got a number. But actually, one of our board members, our current vice chair of the board, she has been served as an alternate to represent our region. And so it's a great opportunity. Every other year, SABE endeavors to have a national conference, and I can tell you there's nothing more powerful than going and seeing a SABE conference. I would encourage you to take up the opportunity if you have to have your young person go to a SABE conference. It's about 7 to, I'd say 850. It's been as big as 850, the conferences that I've been to, of people with disabilities, people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, leading a national movement, organizing and focusing on several issues that are important to people with disabilities. So we will be happy to share with you that information. It will always be part of SAM's information. So if you connect to us, you'll have that information readily available. But it's also a great opportunity. And we would like to just highlight a couple, if we go to the next slide, a couple activities that you can kind of tap into that SABE is already working on. So SABE has been working with the National Voter Initiatives, the Help America Vote Act, which is an official bill that helps support people with disabilities and other communities that are typically underrepresented in voter rolls to vote, the Help America Vote Act. So with part of that work is SABE has developed a Go Voter project, helping people with disabilities know what to experience and to vote and go to the ballot box, not have to use absentee, that misnomer. I have a family member who doesn't like to do the absentee. That whole thing is not a good thing, that in isolation. Of course, a lot of us got to do it, increase some people's in Michigan, increase some people's access to the ballot. So it's about finding the right vote method that works for you. It's also about, part of that I shall tell you is that every time at the SABE conference, they vote for their national leaders, and the National Voter Technology Project based at Clemson University in South Carolina comes to SABE's conference, brings new technology, and asks people with intellectual and developmental disabilities to develop the new technology, and they have a direct hand in making recommendations on future accessible machines that are purchased or recommended to states to purchase, so people with disabilities have greater access to the ballot. And that includes, voice recognition, digital, paper conversions of a person's vote. That means, accessible actual machines with headphones and screen readers and that sort of thing. So a very cool opportunity, but also resources about what to know when you go to the ballot box is something that the SABE Go Voter Project is there to help with. The other piece is SARTAC, and that's about building leadership for self-advocates. So SARTAC has a series, and it's in the handout. They are right now during COVID have really pivoted, and I have to say, doing amazing work of focusing on specific topics. So every Monday, Wednesday since COVID has happened at 1 o'clock Eastern time, SARTAC has a webinar of self-advocates, and you can get on every Monday and Thursday, or you can get on the topic that makes sense to you or when you're available. And I would really encourage you. I know people have gotten a lot out of it. It's also a way to connect with self-advocates across the country. It's also a good window into knowing what other disability experiences look like. The one thing that knowing your own identity as a self-advocate is part of it, but you also need to learn how to work with other self-advocates by getting to know how to work with a diverse group of people with the disability experience. And I think Renee mentioned that when she talked about the board of SAM, and that's really, really important. It's about geography, it's about gender, it's about lived experience by age, it's about gender identity, it's about disability, it's about your lived general day-to-day experience too. So it's a great opportunity to connect with others. So you can tap into SARTAC, and again, the link's there and anyone can join. Next slide. So one thing we can help, we'd like to leave with you as we leave some space here for some final thoughts is to think about how you can get involved, how you can help somebody that you care about, or you can join. I shared with you early on, I worked with a self-advocacy group in my community many years ago. That's how I became involved in the self-advocacy. I became as a supporter, I came there. So if you are a person with a disability, join a local self-advocacy group. And that might mean also joining another advocacy group on an issue that you care about where you're developing your skills of advocacy. We welcome you to join a committee. Renee and I literally just got off the membership committee, so the membership committee just met. We meet monthly. The membership committee and public policy committee and public relations committee all have different cadence of how often they meet. Membership meets once a month. Public relations meets twice a month, and then public policy meets every other, twice a month. So the cadence is different. So we really encourage people to join. You could certainly, as Renee said, January is the time where we're going to open the SAM board meetings. We are meeting virtually. We foresee virtual space being probably for a while. I will tell you, in the pre-COVID world, the board put in its bylaws that it would meet virtually 8 times a year and in person 4 times a year. So with COVID, it wasn't a huge, huge switch. They were meeting because they live all across the state. They were already incorporating virtual platforms there. And then if you can help people think about their leadership going into the future, we really would encourage you to help us identify future leaders. I will tell you, is the board membership, we have board membership always opens January and is due by the 31st of each year. And then newly elected board members are elected in June, and they start their 2-year terms in July. So that's the same, every year we have the same calendar. And so you can think about that going forward. And if we go to the next slide, I just wanted to quickly mention the 3 statewide developmental disabilities ACT organizations collaborate. Renee and I are just, we're one half of the support team to Self-Advocates of Michigan. Brett Williams from the DD Council supports the Public Policy Committee, and Chelsea Chamberlain from the Disability Rights Michigan is supporting the Public Relations Committee. So, and Renee is the thread that kind of weaves through all of us, as we're all supports, and I support the membership committee. So our networks have worked together because we really believe that people with intellectual and developmental disabilities have to lead their voice of advocacy amongst their movement. And we go to the next slide. I think it's space for some more questions. So I will leave it open and see if there's any other questions or clarifications that we can provide.
And we do have some questions at this point. I feel like I heard you say there was a distinction where you need to be 18 to serve on the board. We have a question about groups for youth that are 17 to learn more about becoming a self-advocate.
So you can be part of coming to our meetings and part of a committee. That is totally fine. The board membership is the one of the parameters is that you need to be 18. They decided when they wrote the bylaws that they wanted adults. So there was no worry or concern about from a board role that that persons couldn't be legally, able to make decisions about their board membership. But youth, and that's what we really want to encourage, is young people to come and to join up and to listen and be a part of committees and attend the board meetings. So that does not have an age parameter.
Right, because that's where it begins, right? That's where you start to learn all your skills and your abilities, and then you carry them on, and then you move into leadership roles, right?
Got to have lots of practice and exposure.
Absolutely, and start at a young age, given that power to make their own decisions. Another question is looking for resources to learn more about policies and law that are up for review or to be voted on to help spread the word to increase rights.
Come to our policy committee meetings, because we exhaustively sometimes go over everything that's up, anything that's currently being considered in the legislature, anything, Brett and I get policy, and I'm sure Angela does in her space too. We get these policy alerts nonstop all day long about anything that might pertain to persons with disabilities. And so we kind of go through all of those and talk about which things that the SAM board wants to be involved in, but there's also just general information about just, FYI, this is out there. It might not be something that we take up as a cause as the SAM board, but the information is out there. So attend a policy committee meeting.
And I would also say save information. There, one of the principles and what we try to also practice is everything needs to be in plain language. If it can be an easy read too, we try to accomplish that as well. But when there's hot button national issues, I really encourage you to go to SABE, and their weekly webinars are usually on those hot button issues, and they'll have that, and SARTAC as well, the SARTAC weekly webinars. I'm also going to drop in here, and Stephanie, I'm going to rely on you. If I can do this right, I don't know if I can do this right, but our national, so our Michigan Developmental Disabilities Institute is a member of the Association of University Centers on Disability. And we have a public policy team, and my colleague Liz Weintraub at AUCD does a weekly webinar, but you can go back, you can watch them all. She does a weekly interview on a specific hot topic, and she calls it Tuesdays with Liz. She's a person with a disability, and she was in the video. You may have not. She's short brown hair and had a green shirt on. She was, but you can always tap into those videos and watch them. Even previous series will give you information about that. So several different opportunities, but Renee said, like, come to the Public in Michigan policy, come to our work nationally, SABE, SARTAC, and then I would encourage you also to tap in the resources of the ARC National Self-Advocacy Group, but also Tuesdays with Liz is another good resource.
Fantastic, and I was able to share that out with the audience. We do have another question. Any advice that you have? Oh, bear with me, I lost my question. There we go. What advice do you have for students to self-advocate for having their IEP followed or getting the accommodations that they're supposed to get?
Well, the first thing is giving them the confidence to make sure that they are, it's okay to do that, right? Like really to hold the school to say, hey, I need this, right? I remember when I assisting my own sister that there was a thing about the school said she didn't need her wheelchair at a particular time during the day. And it was helping her to figure out to say that, no, I need it, and I need it nearest to me so that I don't get tired, right? You know, and how she can explain to people from a very young age why she can walk. And some people would always make, again, somebody making a assumption about her life where she can walk, so she doesn't really need the chair. Well, no, it's about her medical needs, and also it's about helping her to figure out how she can advocate. So it's about, you know, preserving energy so she can make it through the full school day. So helping your youth, your student to figure out in those instances in a day-to-day life, and it's really also talking with them or learning from them where they kind of find those struggles so that you can help kind of model or mentor them along to figure out how they can navigate that in that moment. It comes with a lot, it also comes with a bit of confidence and encouragement to say, you know, it's not being disrespectful to ask for what you need. You can do it in a respectful way, but it's about making sure you're expressing what you need. Renee, your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, I think in the video, one of the self-advocates said, I know what I need. And I think that is just key, right? When I meet with any of the self-advocates, when I talk to anyone, the first question that I ask them is, what do you need? How can I best support you? What do you want? And if that's not happening, if the people in charge, if you will, are not asking those questions, then somehow we need to help that student feel empowered to say, this is what I need. Because there are no words more powerful than those, I don't think.
And we need to make sure people know expressing what you need is not about being bold or bawdy. It's really about making sure that you're getting to be your best self at that point. So encouraging that.
Absolutely, fantastic advice. I am going to go ahead and share a link in the chat for a survey for feedback on this program. Michigan Alliance for Families is grant funded. We do have to report to our funders and let them know how the program was, what you thought, how much you learned. So please, if you could take a moment and open up that window, it probably take 2 minutes of your life. I do not have any other questions in the chat right now. So I'm going to go ahead and say, if you think of more questions later, do not hesitate to reach out to your regional parent mentor. We are totally free parent training and information all throughout the state. If you email info@michiganallianceforfamilies.org or call the 800 number on the screen, they will get you connected with your regional person. You can also follow the Facebook page. Hi, Facebook Live. We're glad you're here. We're excited you could join us, or our Twitter account, or our YouTube channel. I will give another quick moment if anyone has any additional questions they want to type in. We appreciate your time and expertise today, Angela and Renee. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for focusing on this topic.
Absolutely. It's so important to reaching parents when their kids are little and planting that seed across the board, disabilities or not disabilities, that you're growing adults and you're empowering people to be self-advocates and stand up for their rights. stand up for themselves, have their opinions, I think is so important. So we're glad you could join us. And seeing no additional questions, I'm going to wrap us up. Michigan Alliance for Families is an IDEA grant-funded initiative of the Michigan Department of Education, Office of Special Education, and Michigan's Federal Parent Training and Information Center, funded by the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Special Education Programs. Thank you so much for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your day.